Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Elevating Employee Experience with Communications. Please note that all lines are muted, but we do want this to be interactive. So if you have any questions, please type those into the questions section of the GoToWebinar control panel, and we will be sure to reserve time at the end of the webinar to get them answered. With that, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to introduce our two presenters today, Stefanie Lightman, Head of Brand Management here at Limeade, and Ryan Shira, Solutions Architect at Limeade. So please take it away, Stefanie.
Thanks, Cassandra, and thanks everyone so much for joining us. As Cassandra mentioned, I'm Stefanie Lightman here at Limeade, and I'm joined by my colleague, Ryan Shira. We picked these pictures on purpose. I'm going to start today's session with a little bit of a conversation around employee experience. There might be some slides and some theoretical dialogue, and then the adventurer here on the slide, Ryan, is going to take us through an adventure. He's going to put us in the shoes of an employee and really explore what that employee experience can be all about and how we can change the game for communication in the context of employee experience. So we're excited for this conversation. We appreciate that everybody's joining us today, and Ryan, I'm looking forward to the next 30 to 40 minutes with you. So keep your questions coming, and we look forward to a great dialogue at the end as well. So many of you who are joining us are communicators or HR professionals, and so I think you know what communications is all about, and I'm going to sort of trust, and especially for those of you who I've had the opportunity to meet, that you are great communicators. What I want to challenge for today is that not that we don't know how to communicate and not that we don't know how to be effective when it comes to communication, but somehow we seem to still be missing the mark on how that communication can really impact the employee experience. How often is it that we find that the programs and initiatives that we're rolling out just don't have the lift and the uptake that we're hoping for? Or you pass that colleague in the hallway and you find out that they haven't heard about the latest program that you've worked so hard for them to have at their fingertips. And so again, it's not how do we be better communicators, but it's how do we do a better job reaching the employees and changing the paradigm of how communications can impact the employee experience. We tried to look at the agenda for today in 3 different areas. The first, I'll talk a little bit about the challenge. This is really the challenge that we see a lot in organizations of all sizes and of different makeups, but I think you can also tie this back to maybe some of the challenges you're having in your own organizations. We'll talk a little bit about how that impact is of communications against the employee experience and with these challenges that we all face every day. And then again, the adventurer here on the call will take us through an awesome experience, and hopefully you'll all leave inspired, not only as individuals on how you might change your own communication initiatives, but also bring in your colleagues and the other folks in your organization to have a conversation and really break the mold of how you're changing employee experience and communications in your own organizations. When we look at employee experience, it is such a broad topic, and we know that it can have so many different meanings. I want to propose that the employee experience happens every day and happens in every minute of an employee's life. So I live in New Jersey and I work from a home office, but I'm here in Bellevue today giving the webinar. And, my employee experience when I walked in the office here was impactful. What was it like for me to come into Bellevue, having not been here for a couple months, and see some of my old colleagues and friends? That's employee experience. What was it like, or what is it like when your employees join their organization for the first day? What is onboarding like? What if they come back from a leave? What is that experience like? What is their employee experience when they have something happening maybe in their home life compared to their work life? These are all moments in time that happen that make up that employee experience. And how we as communicators and HR professionals impact that has such amazing opportunity for us to change what that employee experience can be. When we think about that employee experience, we look at it on 3 different levels. So the first, and the one that I think all of us can kind of internalize the easiest, is at that whole person side. How do we impact the individual when it comes to that employee experience? As communicators and HR professionals, what can we offer the whole person when they come into work every day? Do they have access to maybe the important documents they need to be successful? Do they know what they need to know to get their job done well? Maybe if I'm a retail clerk in a store, do I know what products will sell better so that I can have an effective sales day? If I'm a nurse, do I know what the latest policies are so I can serve my patients better? These are all aspects of my experience that relate to what gets communicated to me and really impact me as an individual every day when I come to work. But we know that we don't work alone. We work in an organization where I have a team. I have leaders that I look up to and hopefully inspire me. And so think about how our communication actually impacts the whole company. Do I have access to my manager on a regular basis? Can I connect with my team members? How easy is it for me to reach out to a team member? If I am somebody who maybe doesn't have email, how can I actually connect with a team member to find out, what are they up to, or compare notes on the best way to do my job, or just make friends and relationships in the workplace that are so important to me having a well-rounded experience? And how do I get to know my leaders and my managers? Maybe a new CEO just started and I want to get to know that individual and feel really comfortable that they are someone I'm excited to be led by. How do I get to know those leaders in the organization? So the experience expands beyond just me as the person, but the communication and the information that surrounds me around my company really matters. And then lastly, there's the ecosystem, right? So this is where so many of you spend a lot of time really building out the programs and the activities and the entire ecosystem that makes our organizations run so well. Maybe it's the HR portal that I have access to be able to go look at my benefits or look at my paycheck. Maybe it's a well-being program that I can participate in. There's a whole ecosystem of programs and activities and infrastructure that support me, my team, and everything around me. And so when you think about it from the employee experience aspect, there are levels to the experience that go from me as an individual all the way out to the ecosystem. But what I want to do for a minute is really challenge that maybe in some cases that ecosystem can be almost too broad and too daunting for the actual individual to wrap their arms around and be as engaged and excited as possible. We know that so many of our employees don't sit at a desk every day. Even the traditional desk worker these days is running from meeting to meeting or encouraged to be out on the road meeting customers or attending events. And so how do we make sure that that whole picture, the ecosystem, is accessible to me and brings information to me when I need it and in the context of what's going to be most relevant and help me have the best employee experience possible? So that's what we're going to look at today, and that's this fun adventure that we're going to go on in just a few minutes, but really think about that employee experience and how we communicate to our individual employees and to our ecosystems at large, and change the game from not just providing a ton of information, a ton of new programs, a ton of great resources, but changing the conversation to how are we going to reach all of our employees to make sure that they have the best experience possible. And let's talk a little bit about what reach means. So I think when people initially think about reaching their employees, they immediately go to the physical side, which is of course important. And so many organizations today are looking at mobile as a great way to reach folks. And for those of you who know us here at Limeade, you know that we love mobile and we think mobile in a lot of our aspects because it's amazing that all employees now have these amazing devices at our fingertips. But physical reach is just making sure that wherever that employee is, we are there. Taking advantage of things like a mobile device, but it could also be the desktop or digital signage, but ensuring that we're being respectful that our employees are out doing things, whether it's on the manufacturing floor, nurses on a hospital floor, retail in a store, and we are reaching them physically. And then there's two other aspects of reach that become so critical to think outside of just the physical and really to where I think you make that connection with the employee that is so powerful that you start to bridge the gap of what a true employee experience can really be about. How do you reach those employees on an emotional level? How do you have a connection in a moment in time with each employee that you understand them and you're putting yourself in their shoes and connecting with them in a moment that matters? When you think about all of the initiatives that you have, all of the communications that go out, are they as relevant as possible to those different employees? I like to think about it in this sort of persona exercise of, if I look at the different types of employees we have across the organization, think about them and what matters to each type of employee that you have. What will matter to the hourly worker that maybe works on a manufacturing floor and on Fridays is maybe stressed out if their paycheck has come in on time? Or think about the desk worker that is constantly running from meeting to meeting, but needs to look up an important document as they run into that next meeting. Or the nurse that just joined a hospital and wants to get to know the new CEO and feel comfortable that that hospital system is a right home for them and feel really excited by the leadership of that hospital system that they just joined. What's the different emotional connections you can make with those respective audiences to reach them, to say that we get what's important to you and we're going to give you the information that really matters to them, the what's in it for me aspect. And then the last element to think about when it comes to reach is efficiency. Everybody's busy. You're all busy, so we absolutely appreciate that you took the time out of your busy days to be here with us today. And so are your employees. If you take just a few minutes to interact with them, to give them new information, to put a program in front of them that might add value, how do you be respectful of their time? If you give them a survey, ask them a poll question, what can you give them in return to say, you know, we're respectful of your time, you took a few minutes with us, let's give you value in return. We know that throughout the day, employees have just a few seconds to break up the day. Maybe it's when they go on break or they're waiting for a meeting to start. And so how can you reach them in those moments efficiently and really put that return on investment in their time so that you are reaching them in the best way possible? So think about your communication efforts, all of your different HR initiatives, and how you are reaching the different folks in your organization. Are you getting there physically? Are you giving them the options to be where they are versus asking them to go seek out the different aspects? And most importantly, are you thinking about the way that you're giving them information and asking them to consume things? Are you connecting with them on that emotional level? Are you being respectful of their time? And are you making it a really efficient exchange of information at that moment in time? So with that, the adventurer on the call, Ryan, is going to take us through a quick demonstration, a little bit of a day in the life of an employee. So maybe you can think about how this might then circle back to your own organization and have a real world play in your communication efforts and what this pendulum switch could be in terms of changing the employee experience to be more about the employee and less about giving them more tools and resources to go find.
Thanks, Stephanie. And to those on the call, I do apologize if you hear some dogs barking. It's mail time here in Scottsdale, Arizona. So every morning, my dogs like to bark and make sure the mailman knows that they're here. So as Stephanie mentioned, one of the great things is the physical reach, right? I as an employee, don't have to hunt or peck for information or search for information that my organization wants me to know that's important to me. So I, on a break, can quickly launch my company app. It quickly authenticates me and takes me to my home page. Here I'm going to see communications, tasks that are relevant to my job role, or I can quickly search for important documents that are going to make me better at my job. Now, as you can see from an intuitive perspective, what's great to me as an employee is that this looks and feels like a consumer grade app that I work with in my personal life. If I want to search for a document that maybe I had saved, I can quickly put that here, or I can further explore any channel that I have access to and review curated information. So if I wanted to read up on some new HR benefit right around open enrollment time, I can quickly go to that channel and consume that information. But strictly focusing on some of the communications that I see here on my home feed, by the way, from a nomenclature perspective, the way that we view these communications are through individual activity cards. So an activity card might be a piece of important communication that my organization, Starco, wants every employee to know. Maybe there's something new that we've recently won an award with our industry. Think of the emotional connection now that I have as an employee have to my organization. I feel proud that I'm coming to work every day with a sense of purpose, knowing that my company is a leader in their industry. Not only is this important for me to consume, but they've made it easy for me to share across my personal networks. So if I wanted to post this on my LinkedIn profile and brag a little bit about what all the great things that are happening here at Starco, I can easily do that. In addition to these corporate-wide communications, this might be something pertinent only to my job role or to my location. Again, it makes it easy for me to consume relevant communications that's going to make me a better employee, more efficient in getting that communications. No longer do I have to go to a company intranet portal site. All that information is being pushed at the right appropriate time. But in addition to these type of activity communications, I know that Starco is heavily invested in diversity and inclusion. As part of this, I'm seeing organic activities that my colleagues are participating in as part of this diversity and inclusion movement. Here I'm seeing photos uploaded at a recent weekend event. I can comment, I can share. Now I feel invested. Wow, not only is my organization talking the talk, but now I see my colleagues, my peers participating in these type of activities. Now I'm kind of emboldened. I'm kind of feel like maybe I want to take part in an upcoming event. And as part of this diversity and inclusion strategy and movement within the organization, it's important for Starco to listen to their employees. So I can quickly complete a pulse survey. I can read or I can watch a video explaining to me the importance of inclusion and diversity at Starco. So now I feel invested and emboldened to take that survey. And no longer do I have to hunt and search my inbox or look for it on a different portal. It's all right here in my homepage newsfeed, and I can quickly take action on that. And then once I complete that survey, I receive a piece of communication saying, thank you for your feedback. And here's the next step. So now I know that as an employee who'd recently completed an inclusion survey, I know what's going to happen next. I can look forward to additional steps within that diversity and inclusion movement here at my organization. I can also sign up and register for employee resource groups or upcoming meetings, such as maybe there's a town hall that my CEO, the new CEO, is leading, and I want to be part of that. Previously, that communication was maybe posted on a break room wall, or I had to hear from it from a peer because I don't have access to company email. Now I see all those happenings, all those events, and I can mark my attendance right here within the Limeade One app. Additionally, what it's connecting me to are other benefits and resources available in my organization. Previously, if I wanted to refer someone to my organization, I had to hunt and search for that particular page, and it was clunky and I couldn't access it on my phone. The great thing here now is I'm so proud to work for Starco, and if I see open positions at my location and I know someone who might be great for that role, right within my homepage, I can actually refer someone and it'll be sent to my HR department. Or if I don't know anyone, but I want to make sure that I get that referral bonus, maybe I can push this out again to my broader social and professional network. It's simple, easy, doesn't take too much time because I only have 15 to 30 minutes on my break. So I want to make it as efficient for me as possible, which I love about this app. Additionally, what keeps me emotionally invested is seeing individuals recognized for their hard work at Starco. A lot of times previously, if I did a good job or I went out of the way for my fellow employees, maybe I got a thank you in a one-on-one passing, but no one else knew about that. Now, not only can I receive kudos for a job well done from other employees, but now I can recognize my team's peers and colleagues and let everyone within the organization know when someone does a good job. But as an hourly employee, it's not just being able to see communications. What I'm emotionally invested in might be understanding when I get paid accordingly. What this app allows me to do is receive a notification when that new paycheck is available. And because I recently took a vacation, I want to make sure that that pay stub is correct. So within one click, without having to log in or remember different credentials into my paycheck system that my company utilizes, the app is actually already connected with that, so I can quickly see my pay stub. I can see that I was paid accordingly for my vacation time, and I feel confident in knowing that my organization is paying me appropriately. But in addition to this homepage, there might be certain tasks that I need to do. By going to the next tab, it's going to filter to those particular activities that I need to take action on. One of the things is that at my current plant, in my position, we're currently planning for vacation in the next quarter. So I here have an activity that's prompting me to go ahead and request vacation time when it's appropriate. Once I submit my vacation request, it'll be sent to my manager and supervisor, and then they can approve or deny the request right within the app, making it easy and simple for me when I'm taking action like that. Additionally, I can connect with teams, peers, and colleagues within my plant. I'm already, because I work in the Altoona, Pennsylvania plant, I can quickly communicate with other employees, or I can search for individual employees and connect with them without having to go to a kiosk and access my personal email. But all of these activities and communications are being pushed to me. The great thing that I love about this is I can also, if I want to go out and search for something or take action to retrieve one of those documents that's important, maybe there was an updated safety protocol, I can quickly do that by moving to the services tab and accessing those important documents. Or maybe if I want to submit a safety incident, right? These are 30-second tasks that previously I had to search for on a company intranet portal page that was difficult, it was clunky, I didn't know where to go, and so I just didn't do it. But now, right within my fingertips, on my break, it's making it more efficient, and now I'm more likely to take action on those particular tasks, like clocking in, clocking out, or again, if I want to send a kudos to Stephanie for doing such a good job on today's webinar, I can easily do that and say, hey, 5 stars, You were great. And now everyone knows within my organization how wonderful Stefanie is. So now I'm emotionally invested in not only Stefanie's success, but I want everyone to know that we're doing a great job. So with that being said, I'm going to turn things back over to Stefanie. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Ryan, and thanks for the shout out. I'm super inspired now to even wrap up the last couple minutes of today's webinar, so that was great. So I hope everyone got a little bit of flavor of not only the concepts we've been talking about, but really how that then connects to the life of an employee and how much it really matters if I can have everything easily accessible at my fingertips. When time is of the essence and when I'm super busy at my job and when I really want to get information. As employees, we have a lot of things going on, and so the easier my life can be really just makes my employee experience better. We're going to go into questions momentarily, so feel free to start typing those in. But before we do, I wanted to just share two great stories to continue on this idea of inspiration. Two organizations that have done an amazing job changing the paradigm for their employees and how they experience life at their organization. Give you some more things to think about and hopefully continue to inspire you to go back and think about your own efforts in your respective homes. So the first one is a healthcare organization that really noticed early on that, like many of you, had a huge deskless population, and mobile was an amazing way to reach all of these nurses and clinicians who were out caring for patients. Their biggest opportunity was that these folks not only wanted to be connected with the parent brand, Encompass Health, but also wanted to stay connected with maybe the facility or the rehabilitation center that they worked for. So many of you might be able to relate to this, where you have employees that not only care for their connectedness to your corporate brand, but also maybe the manufacturing facility that they're tied to or the office environment that they have. There's almost like a family, a local family that happens. And so they wanted to make sure that all of their employees really felt connected both on a corporate and a local level. And then the other side of it was this kind of efficiency aspect where they were just hearing firsthand that nurses needed access to top documents that were constantly changing when they were caring for patients, and that there was this idea that, there was time being wasted, challenges when I needed to get access to certain HR information. So they really took these efforts and this feedback to heart, and they said, well, let's just solve this. Let's give our employees what they need to make sure that they have a better employee experience and they can care for our patients better, because we know that we are taking some of these burdens away from them. So today, they have this amazing app where their staff can go and hear corporate news, hear local information, stay connected at a local level. The nurses, as they ask for, can get access to these top documents in real time. So if a policy changes, they know they're always getting the latest and greatest. Maybe if I'm a nurse and my significant other is off at a doctor, I can see a snapshot of my benefits so I know in real time what's covered and not covered. They've expanded to see paychecks and their well-being program. And so they've really taken to heart this idea that the employee experience for communications is a holistic view of everything I need at my fingertips. And because their organization is so broad and so far-reaching, they wanted to make sure that that idea that everything being accessible when I need it and relevant to me carried through. And the last story I'll share is really just one that I feel is so inspiring on many levels, not only because of this idea of reach and change that we're talking about, but really because it's about caring for employees. And one of our customers here has manufacturing plants in the Carolinas. And for those of you who don't know, about a year ago, the Carolinas suffered some pretty huge hurricanes. And so if any of you have experienced big disasters in areas where you have employees, this is a very stressful time. You have to care for those employees that are probably out of reach. Those employees are stressed. If any of you have been in that situation where you don't know if you should leave your house because you have family and things going on, but you also have a job you need to do and you don't want to lose your paycheck and you don't know if you should report into work. Is your office open? Is your plant open? I mean, these are times when employees can really make a difference in caring for their staff and really change the game for what employee experience is all about. And so for this organization, during those times of hurricanes, they used the app as a way to reach everybody that was affected by those hurricanes first and foremost. So they were able to post continual safety videos, resources to local information in terms of health resources and other access to information that those folks needed. But what I love about it is they asked the employees in the affected areas to just check in. Tell us you're okay, and if you're not okay, how can we help you? So imagine the power of an employee who's going through this horrible weather-related incident and has felt like, nobody's helping them right now because they're in the midst of these horrible hurricanes, and their employer reaches out and just says, hey, just let us know you're okay. The power of that is huge. And it can only be done by reaching the employee where they were at a time when they needed to be reached. And so I just felt like this was such a wonderful story to end on, because I know it's just one particular moment in time and one particular scenario, but I think as we talk about how communications has impact on the employee experience, this is such a powerful story to talk about how just even a moment in time where communication matters is so powerful, as long as you care for the idea that you need to reach the folks where they are and put it in context of what really matters to them at that exact moment. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions. Thank you all for joining us today, and we look forward to taking your questions.
Right, we'll give a few moments for folks to type in their questions, but thank you, Stephanie and Ryan, for a great presentation. We'll see what has come in so far. We do have quite a few questions coming in, so please keep your questions coming. We did reserve time to answer these at the end of the webinar, so hopefully we can get through all of these. First question is, how do you reach employees who are not working on/near a computer and do not have corporate email addresses or mobile phones and have not shared their personal mobile phone number or email address? So are there ways for you to communicate with them?
Sure, so I'll take this one. So, I think when we think about reach, as I mentioned about the physical reach, mobile is an amazing way to do that, and we have seen that even organizations where folks use personal devices, we live in a world where people do embrace the idea that I will use my personal device for work-related things when it has value to me. So that is something that we see a trend in, even though many of you may feel like it's something that your employees may not embrace. But you have to be respectful of that might only happen over time. So we also see things like a shared iPad in break rooms where I can still access this information and log in quickly on my break, or don't ignore other things like digital signage and other aspects of it. But I think the key is to reach all the employees where they are and make it accessible. And the nice thing is we live in a world where everybody does have a mobile device, so I would not overlook this idea that people, if it is of value, will feel like it's okay to connect on their personal device because you're connecting with them emotionally and you're giving them value and you're not asking them to just do work on their personal phone.
So we also have another question about the app. It says, it begs the question of resources. Might you have insight into team structure best practices to ensure proper governance and monitoring? So FTEs to feed content and manage the platform effectively.
Sure. Yes, it sounds like there's a lot of lift. However, I would think about this idea that we are pulling from a lot of different sources, so some of this should be automated. A lot of our customers have this perfect combination of content that they're creating, but also pulling from other sources. So like your paycheck coming from another source, or your local HR representatives embracing it for their content. So this is not that one FTE person has to make all of those things come to life. This is a reach story for things that are already happening in your organization and extending that. So not knowing the size of your organization, it's hard to say, you know, what kind of resources you put on it, but I would think about what are the things you're doing today, and this is a extension of those things, not an additive activity you need to add on to it.
And how does this app work on the back end? Does it connect to intranets or disparate systems?
Sure, Ryan, you want to take that one?
Sure, absolutely. So the way that we connect to current line of business systems is through what we call connectors and collectors. And so a collector would sit on a line of business. Take, for instance, the paycheck example. It would sit on either behind your firewall or connect to your cloud system if you're using a cloud source line of business system. And we would look for business parameters such as on a certain date, look for any kind of state changes. So if your paycheck comes on the 1st and 15th of every month, that collector recognizes that there's been a state change, a new paycheck is available, and then it would send out a push notification to all users who get paid on the 15th or the 1st of the month, and they would see that card that I showed in the demonstration, and then the connector would authenticate into that line of business system and display to the user in near real time, as I demonstrated, their invoice, their statement. So that's the way that we connect. So we have a rich set of APIs, REST APIs that we can connect to a multitude of line of business systems to connect things like your applicant tracking system, your paycheck, your payroll system, your workforce management system for clocking in, clocking out. And we've done that with a multitude of systems out in the marketplace today.
Awesome. Do you feel that the app replaces an intranet?
I love this question. If you ask any of those of us who have been around the mobile app space for a while, we would all say absolutely, because we believe wholeheartedly that mobile is the way to go, especially with how we all interact today. But the reality is, what we see is that a lot of organizations do still have their intranet. I can say that I have run into a handful today that have now leapfrogged the redesign to go towards mobile. Because if you think about what Ryan showed you, so much of what we do on an intranet today can be accomplished through this experience. So you don't necessarily need both. And I think that if you put yourself in the shoes of your employees and how they really do interact and live their personal life and tie that to their business life, mobile is just so much more of the way people expect to interact. So I would challenge that you could replace your intranet with this approach. And if you're not ready to do it today, I would challenge that before you go replace your intranet with the next best thing, you should definitely look at this approach as the way to go.
Awesome. We have a couple of questions around privacy. So how do you protect your employees' privacy if their information is on the app? Do we have any other questions about privacy? Yeah, and how do you reach out to employees while also respecting their space?
Sure. So a couple of things on privacy. So the product itself is designed to be completely secure and GDPR compliant, and ensuring that without getting into too many of the details, that we can make your security folks feel very comfortable that we've built this in a way that the data is secure and encrypted. From an employee perspective, their data is never stored on the device. So there is no risk of them leaving the device behind and all of that information being left to the wild. I think for the employee, which is really the hardest sell of, why should I start telling you this information? to my organization, I think that's part of the trust relationship you start to build. And when you form that relationship of emotionally giving them back things that if you ask them a question and you're giving them something in return for what you've asked them for, they will be more apt to share, right? Give them the understanding that anything they share is private and secure, and there's no risk of that information being used for any other purpose. But more importantly, give them value in return. I think that people will be open to having a conversation with you once they understand that there's value in it for them.
And there have been many articles on scrapping updates during meetings to make meetings more efficient. So is this a way to kind of get those updates out to your employees, and what are other ways that you can respect employees' time and make the most of meetings?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the idea that people are able to check an app or read things in quick second intervals as they have just breaks throughout their day really starts to allow you to care for that person's time versus assuming that when they come in the morning, they're super fresh and the 15 minutes of information you dump on them is going to serve them good for the rest of the day, right? So you're respecting the idea that maybe the best time for that employee is not before they've had their coffee, right before they go on their shift. You're saying to that employee, when you have just a few seconds, go onto the app, get the latest and greatest, and if you need something, it's there for you too. So I think there's a lot of strength in this idea that not everyone digests things in a 15-minute stand-up meeting, and maybe it is a better approach to allow the employee to control how it is best for them to digest the information.
Awesome. And is there a way to access this app online and not on a phone?
Absolutely. Yep. You can access it through any web browser.
Awesome. And how long does it take to set up?
Ryan, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, we've done deployments within 30 days. We've done deployments within 60 days. It really depends on the number of integrations that we're doing with line of business systems. The great thing, though, is that it can evolve over time. So we work with a lot of organizations who just want to focus on communications at first launch. Then they over time connect more and more line of business systems. In the example of Encompass Health, they didn't launch with paycheck integration initially. That was something that they grew into. And that really speaks to the flexibility of our platform, is that you can start with just a few functions, features, and then grow with us and add in more and more over time. So the great news is we can spin it up real quick. It really kind of just depends on a case by case. Every customer is different, but those are some typical time frames. Anywhere between 30 to 90 days is what we typically see.
All right. If there's any other questions, be sure to type those into the question section of the GoToWebinar control panel. While you are doing that, what I am going to do is talk a little bit about the other webinars we have in our virtual tour before we wrap up here. So we have one webinar at this time next week on inclusion and its impact on the employee experience. And then we also have one about measuring the impact of a great employee experience on September 24th. So you can be sure to check those out on limeade.com in the events section. And I'll also be sending out the link to the virtual tour website after the webinar. I'll also be sharing the recording and the slides of today's webinar for anybody that wants to revisit them or share them with their colleagues. And with that, that's all the questions I've seen come in so far. But thank you everybody for joining us today for our webinar, and thank you Stephanie and Ryan for such a great presentation and staying to answer all of these questions with us. All right, and thanks again everyone.
Thanks everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.